I'm Zach Martin on the Big Fat American Radio Network with a very special guest today. We're going to do something completely different. We all like completely different things. Don't forget you can subscribe to us on iTunes at Big Fat America. We're also available on Spotify as well as TuneIn. And then we're coming to radio.com and iHeartRadio. I don't think radio.com and iHeart know that I've applied to both. So I'll be one of the few that's got them both, I guess. Right.
Okay.
We're with Darrell Johnson. He is with the Positive Coaching Alliance.
Yes.
I got that right.
You got that right.
Darrell, tell us what the Positive Coaching Alliance does.
Sure. So we are an organization that is, sort of at a critical cross-section of where youth and high school sports sort of comes to life. And our real purpose and intent and being is very much about ensuring that kids participate and really participate in sports and take advantage of all of those critical life lessons that come from participating in sports. So when you think about lessons you learn about resilience and how to bounce back from mistakes, all of those things come from being involved in youth sports and in high school sports. Our role is very much about just making sure that all kids have an equal opportunity to participate in youth sports.
Well, you do have various levels of ability. And how does that mesh? And how does the Coaching Alliance go in and try to, I guess, dot the I's and cross the T's?
Sure. So for us, it's very much not about trying to teach the technical components of how to play a particular sport, but one of the primary constructs we have is we call every coach a double goal coach, where coaches have two goals in mind. And one is you coach to win. So from a coaching standpoint, make sure you are very well versed in the technical components of teaching and coaching and pushing your athletes forward. But that other side of being a double goal coach is, are you, as the coach, the mentor who's spending quite a bit of time with your athletes, are you ensuring that important life lessons are being learned through sports? I think back to my youth, some of the most important lessons I learned about how to bounce back from defeat were learned on the sandlots, in the playgrounds, in the Bronx when I was a kid. And coaches who were there to help guide me through that were critically important.
I can think of coaches that I didn't even play for that were in my school that had a positive effect on me because of their, sometimes they would also teach. There would be the gym teacher, right? I can remember once, Vic Caboo. and his, you ever heard of Vic Caboo?
No, but my gym teacher, it makes me think of my gym teacher's name was Alan Gold.
Okay, so it's funny that we can remember our gym teacher's name or the drill sergeant's name, right? So Vic Caboo was an amazing man. He ended up dying of pancreatic cancer, but he was the head coach of the Middletown North Lions. Great football team. I mean, there were times we go into halftime, it was 49-zip, and the game was over. So we would put in a third string, and we'd warn the third string not to let the opponent score. If they did, we got peer pressure. We got him in trouble. But I just liked his way about him in the halls, when he wasn't on the field, when he was in the gym class. He just had this way of connecting with people on so many levels. What's the biggest challenge you find for coaches in this day and age?
I'd say one of the biggest challenges that coaches have today is the pressure that this youth sports and high school sports ecosystem has created around kids being able to play at the next level, to acquire a college scholarship or maybe move themselves further along, towards their aspirations of playing professionally. And you and I both know, Zach, those numbers.
Boy, do we know that.
Those numbers are minuscule. So when you think about it from a coach's perspective, if a parent comes with their child to a youth sports setting and their primary focus is about how do you get my kid ready to earn a scholarship or
Should I get a batting coach?
Or should I get
strength and conditioning coach?
Should I shut down every other sport they're playing for them to focus 365 days a year, 12 months out of the year on this particular sport? That's sort of the one sort of area that is helping to unravel sort of the purity of youth sports is parents hyper-focused on, sort of, can this sport help my child unlock something else?
And what that does, it undermines the purpose.
Undermines the purpose. Because, again, when you think about, from our perspective at Positive Coaching Alliance, when you think about what sports does, it's that place where you build a couple of things. You build moral character. You build, character that helps you, youth sports, uncovers, courage and empathy and fairness and respect for others. And then on the other side of the equation, performance character, work ethic. Can you work hard? Can you persevere? Do you have that self-determination to push yourself to go further? And then the one that I think is the most critical one that from a performance characteristic that youth sports unlocks is teamwork. How do you, even if you're working in a job later in life where you're behind a screen and you're in some way, shape, or form, you're interfacing with someone else, whether you're talking to a colleague, emailing a colleague, teamwork is a critical performance characteristic that's developed.
I find that sometimes the true leader in the group is overlooked because of the leader's position, or the leader might be holding the clipboard or actually sitting on the bench, or doesn't have the physical capabilities. So the leader is the team manager who's making sure that everybody has their jersey and the equipment is up to par, and they're helping them with the tape and all of those things, which is a lot of fun to be part of. If you can't participate on the gridiron and be a football player, go for team management. Oh, that's so much fun, and training and things like that, especially when you're injured.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is the biggest problem? Do you usually work mostly with coaches, or do you interact with the children?
So we do both. So as I said before, we have a construct we call coaches a double goal coaches. You coach to win, know the technical components of your sport, but make sure you're teaching life lessons. We also work directly with athletes as well. And we like to call athletes who we work with triple impact competitors.
Oh, okay.
And that's very much about, it's a simple construct of, as an athlete, you have three jobs. One, how do I make myself as an athlete better? How do I work hard, work on my skills to improve my own sort of contribution, to a team sport or even individually if I'm playing tennis or golf or something? How am I improving myself? The second part of being a triple impact competitor is, what are you doing as that athlete to help your fellow teammates? Are you elevating and lifting up your fellow teammates? Are you picking up that teammate who might be having a particularly tough practice? You might have a teammate who's locked in a situation where they just haven't been playing well in practice. What are you as a triple impact competitor doing to help elevate them? And then the final part of it is, it's quite simple. It's, what's the legacy? And I use the word legacy intentionally. What's the legacy that you as a young athlete will leave on your sport? And Zach, it can be as simple as, you're known as the kid that when practice is over, hey guys, we need to pick up the water bottles. We need to pick up the sports drink bottles and dump them in the recycling bin. That's a positive legacy that you can actually leave on your team, on your community, and on the sport you're playing.
Yeah, but don't be that kid that asks for extra wind sprints after you're done with practice. That's a bad idea.
You don't have to be a triple impact competitor by doing that.
Don't be triple impact that way. No, just kidding. The other thing that it's important for the school athletes that are given so many gifts to make sure that they watch out for those who don't get as many gifts. In other words, the kids that aren't on the team, that are quiet walking the halls, that might be the targets of bullying. I think if we did more, Darrell, you can create all the different laws you want about anything, about guns, about this, that, the other thing, anything that really can be something bad. But unless hearts change, those laws are not even going to be effective. It's about the change of heart. So when we hear about these school shootings and things like that, and it's awful, I often think, what led up to it? What kind of conditions were inside the school that got this kid that perpetrated the crime going down the wrong path in the first place? A lot of times, ex post facto, because nobody was paying attention, you find out that these people were the victims of bullying, and hazing and all of those things. So, and you can never excuse those kind of actions. That's not what I'm saying.
Yep.
But maybe what we can do is probably safeguard our kids by teaching them those values of how to treat other people, especially the ones that are struggling, especially the ones that maybe they are really poor and they come with the same clothes every day, or they have stinky sneakers, or they're really bad at certain things. They don't have any confidence. Nobody sits with them at the lunch table. All the girls go, ew. They won't go with, the school dance stuff is too much pressure, by the way. Mm-hmm. I can remember that happening to me, and that was, luckily, I was equipped spiritually to deal with it. So, and I would joke about it, but I got to say, it wasn't always fun for me.
Yeah.
And I always was determined I would never be like that kind of a person. And I got some stories. I don't want to share them right now because they're kind of heartbreaking, but I think that would be great if anybody listening to this would just pause and think a little bit and try to teach our kids not to be bullies. And the response from a parent when you find out that your kid has bullied somebody or harassed them, they have to have consequences for that. Yeah. You got to pull them off the team. You got to make them sit in their room. You got to give them extra tours. A good way to discipline a child is to give them PT, especially if they're physically capable of doing it. Because hitting's not gonna really help. But when you give a person PT, if they can do it, that's gold right there. You know where I learned that?
Where's that?
I was at Disney World, and a little boy hit his baby sister, and the father was a Marine. He goes, "Did you just hit your baby sister?" Yeah. "Drop and give me 20. Right in front of everybody. So he starts doing the push-ups. That's not a push-up. You know how to do a push-up. And then the mom got in on him. You call that a push-up? I can do better than that, and I'm pregnant. But it taught a life lesson to everybody around. I'm like, wow. Yeah. It embarrassed him a little bit. Yep. It was a consequence for hitting your sister, but it also gave him strength so that he learned from that. And it gave everybody else, all the parents were like, whoa, we got to try that at home.
Yeah. So part of, a lot of what we do is curriculum based. So it's all a workshop model where we provide sort of our insights, and then we want coaches and athletes to build upon the insights that we provide. But we have one particular piece of curriculum around sort of what we call bullying, hazing, and tradition. And a lot of times you'll hear in schools that people say, well, that's a tradition. Well, that's a tradition that maybe the freshmen always carry the soccer balls, or only the freshmen clean up the field, but it's not a positive tradition. So a lot of what we do is to not try to talk down to school communities, but we try to help them realize that, when you take a global or macro perspective or look at it, what may be seen as an enduring tradition is actually maybe a form of hazing or bullying. And, a lot of it is, exercise based, where we participate and engage with the athletes directly to have them realize, the fallout from making the freshmen feel like they have to pick up the water coolers or carry the balls is one where you're not elevating and you're not bringing your fellow teammate along. So that sort of piece of content that we work with is very much about just helping schools and youth sports organizations identify that,
Yeah.
and then they can work to rectify
And I think one example of how you would be able to apply that tradition in a better way would be that the upperclassmen do that with the lowerclassmen.
That is,
and teach them. I remember when I was playing football, any of the new kids had to do the up downs. All right, you know those.
Yep.
Right. So it was very interesting. The upperclassmen, we had the lowerclassmen do the up downs. They had no idea that after they were done, we were going to do it with them. Okay. So, it was kind of like, you want to be our brother? Well, this is what you have to do. But we taught you the lesson that not only are we asking you to do it, and it's a team thing to do it, but we do it ourselves. Sometimes that experience can be a little bit like, whoa, what's going on? I thought you pick it up. And then when the other kids get involved, that lesson stayed with me my entire life.
Wow.
It had nothing to do with the coaches. It was us, right?
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
pretty
right?
Powerful.
I just remember that. After everybody,
powerful.
We all did it.
Yeah.
So that was cool. There's the other side of it, and I'm wondering if you guys deal with the people that are not necessarily the top flight athletes. In the discussion, when you go into the schools or into that setting, do you give people some tools in the event that they're being bullied? Like, how to respond?
So a lot of what we do in that situation is we try to open the aperture so that everyone, from the star athlete to maybe the last kid on the bench, that everyone understands the role that they play in the context of the team, and the fact that maybe non-star player shouldn't be bullied because their contributions of keeping the bus rides light and fun.
Exactly.
All of those things play a role in the ultimate success of the team. So a lot of what we do is help athletes in that type of setting where, whether it's happening, where bullying or hazing is happening or not, we try to just make sure that every athlete understands that they're valued. And you're valued because, the contributions you make either on the field to score a goal are critically important, but the contributions that you make on the bus ride, in the locker room, in study hall. You could be the non-star athlete who is sitting in a study hall session with a star athlete, helping them remain eligible or helping them, get up to speed on a math concept that maybe they've been struggling with. That's the value of a team. It's not the glory and the victory of, what happens on the field all the time. It's the totality of the entire youth and high school sports experience.
I like that because no matter what level you're on, you can't get caught up in what you do. You got to focus on who you are. And there's a big difference because who you are goes wherever you go. I know it sounds like crazy talk here or new age, but it's the truth. Knowing who you are is more important than exactly what you do and wherever you go.
Absolutely.
Because wherever those situations are, you're who you are.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's such a simple thing that it always gets overlooked, but I'm glad that the Positive Coaching Alliance, it seems like you have a holistic approach to the interaction with the coaches and the students. On the student side, what are some of the things that, as you look at the emerging trends, what are some things that concern you?
Well, one of the areas where we're starting to spend more time is with social media.
Oh, gosh.
And, and athletes understanding that there is such a phrase as social media for good, that it shouldn't necessarily always be used as that tool where you want to reach out and poke someone or prod someone that you're better or, we're going to win,
Oh, yeah,
to
that
the detriment
of
you. Social media is a space where, we're working with athletes to ensure that they understand that, it's it's a face of you as an individual,
That's right.
but it's also the face of your school and your program, and you really want to make sure you use it in a positive way. So being able to use social media to congratulate your competitor, because without a competitor, in most sports, there are a few, but in most sports, without a competitor, without a worthy competitor, there is no competition.
Yeah, it's like going to the Harlem Globetrotters, and they're always taking on the Washington Generals, and you know the outcome.
So
I'm just kidding.
So our perspective is use social media to help lift your competitor up, and to show appreciation for the spirit of the competition.
Yeah.
Because so much is gained from winning, so much is gained equally from losing, and understanding the critical life lessons that come through that. So to answer your question, social media is probably the one space where we're starting to spend more time, especially with high school athletes.
Well, you can be destroyed by a simple post. No, seriously, you can lose your job, livelihood, lose scholarships, not get scholarships.
I have a college. I have one in college, and I have a high school age child who has aspirations to play football at some level in college. And we've had the discussion about your social media usage, and the fact that, use it in a way in which it puts the best sort of foot forward about who you are, what you value, what's important to you, as opposed to using it in a way in which it's not looked favorable.
Yeah, it's misused. Now, I'll give very quick tips for anybody listening. These are social media skills that cross all kinds of platforms and every corner of life. Don't get into fights on Facebook, or Twitter. Don't get into that. It's just, what difference does it make, right? Don't post dirty things, like pornographic things, that kind of stuff, or take pictures of your boyfriend or girlfriend and put them out on social media. Not good. Today's day and age, in many schools, you can get arrested if you're 18 and the person's, under 18 and you're in the school, and then you have a life of hell. I'll just tell you that. I know those stories. Do not bully people. Don't goad people into committing suicide. And on top of that, never send an email out in anger. Never post about your workplace and the problems at work in anger, or school, or any of those things. That's a bad representation on you. Yeah. One of the things that people tend to gloss over when they're thinking about their lives. Oh, and one other thing about Facebook. It's not really a reality. People are always going to give you the best pictures. Now the girls, they like to do this filtering that fixes up their, I don't know what they're doing, but they're trying to do stuff with the look. Nobody's having that much fun as you think, and nobody's life is perfect. Yep. So just please don't compare yourself to other people. It's not going to do you any good. And then stay away from the politics. Oh my gosh, please. You'll end up getting a lot more trouble getting into that. It used to be at the dinner table. Don't discuss politics, religion, or, there's a whole list. But while we're on the topic of religion, I think one of the parts of who we are that always gets overlooked is the spiritual aspect. Yeah. And what do you do to help try to, I know the confines of how you have to work. It must be very frustrating at times. How do you broach that subject?
Well, I think for us, it's more a question of ensuring that athletes, coaches, parents bring your full self to the participation of, whatever the sport and how you engage in it. But again, sort of, at least this is a personal mantra of mine, show respect for how someone shows up and what's important for them, whether it's spiritual, whether it's religious, whatever it may be. If you approach, your teammates, your opponents with a level of respect that's at a really high level, then you're doing so much to make the ecosystem of youth and high school sports a better place. So for me, it's very much about showing respect.
Well, the other way to approach that, my suggestion would be, is to follow the golden rule. Treat people how you want to be treated. So that is like, that crosses a whole bunch of barriers. Whether you believe or you don't believe, treat people like you want to be treated. I think that's probably the healthiest thing that any of us can do. Me as who I am, I would just say, if you're listening, just think about your spiritual development. Have a priority for that. I think a better use of time is figuring out ways to be a better person as opposed to going to social media. Figure out how to do something better or learn something as opposed to turning on the television. Those you can use better. You can do better things with your time. Then, of course, there's your nutrition, which you got to really focus on. You see some of the nutritional things around here. That you're the body that you have, you got to do your best job to keep it as healthy as possible, because a lot of people are going to end up depending on you. What brought you into the into the work?
So, for me, it's very much, and it could be construed as a strong word, but I feel I have an obligation to do the work that I'm doing now. I had a successful career in the for-profit space as a marketer on CPG, consumer product type brands.
Thank you for defining it.
And I know you always have to define all these acronyms. But for me, I have 3 kids. One is a rising senior in college. Middle one is going to be a rising high school senior, and one will be rising into 8th grade. And when I think, Zach, back to the critical life lessons that I learned a lot of them through sports. So again, for me, selfishly, the work that I'm doing is a way in which I'm modeling for my kids, but also equally important, I'm helping coaches, I'm helping other athletes, I'm helping parents, I'm helping administrators of youth sports organization and athletic directors at schools. I'm helping them just try to use this incredible ecosystem of sports to teach those valuable life lessons. So I think everyone should have the same obligation on varying degrees of a spectrum.
Exactly.
But that's why I do what I do. I've coached for many years. That's the simple answer, is I've coached for many, many years. And this is just a continuation of me being able to coach and help develop kids.
I like this because anybody that's listening, I'm going to say this. Why not you? We had this conversation before we started. Why not you? Why not me? Don't think that it's everybody else's job to do. Maybe you're the one that has to do it. Or at least support the people that have to do that kind of thing, which brings us to donating to the Positive Coach Alliance. You can go to positivecoach.org.
Yes. And
there's a donate button at the top. Maybe if you're on Facebook, you can do next time you have a birthday, you can pick Positive Coaching Alliance as who you want the money to go to. So that's great. So you can use social media for that. That's a good idea. In the future, what we'll do, Darrell, is we'll have some of the coaches join us here in studio.
Absolutely.
Some of the students.
Absolutely.
With their story. Some of the parents of the students. Maybe some parent who had a conversion. And what I mean by that, like they came in with what you said. My kid is going to be the next Willie Mays and has this whole future plotted out. But then because of your interaction, it brought him down to planet Earth. And now everybody's healthy and wise as a result. So that would be a good thing if we can share that.
Excited to continue the dialogue.